Hi, welcome to Cormac Talks. Today we're talking diversity, inclusion, and equity. So I have a few years of experience in terms of being a volunteer for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I was also a manager on the national corporate team in charge of the strategy for diversity, equity, and inclusion for 25,000 employees in Canada. I want to talk about a few things today, but I'm going to start with something very important that's called representation. And I have a very simple example and analogies, just they have a way of making things easier to understand. So we all remember when COVID hit a couple years ago. Sometimes you would go in public places and trying to get the gel from the machine and you would just not recognize your hand and people would wonder like what's going on and whatnot there. And some of you might be wondering, but does this have to do with diversity and inclusion? Well, the simple reason why the machine did not recognize some of the skin tones is because some of those skin tones were not programmed in the machine to be recognized. So that means that when those people were deciding what skin tones to be put in the machine to be recognized, they didn't consider all skin tones. So somebody who's white, for example, would have a lesser time or difficult time to get the product against the germs, whereas somebody who had a different skin complexity, like a black person like me, would have a problem, or somebody that's Asian, or something different than the majority. If you had representation on those teams that were the decision makers or that were making those machines, you would have been able to have at the source somebody who said, oh, by the way, or when you test it, just go to those people and say, you know what, oh, mine is not working before the product was released and the damage is done in terms of perception, you have a chance to correct it in-house because you have a diverse team. That's where diversity and representation are important. I have another example to give, which is a bit more serious, I would say, is the crash test dummies that was used when some cars were made. And we noticed that more women, at some point, that was maybe a bit further in the past there, but at some point, people noticed that women were more likely to die in car accidents than men. Why? Because the crash test dummies at the beginning all had the shape of a man and not of a woman. So it impacts the settings, the airbags, seatbelt, and whatnot there. What they didn't realize was it was just not men that were driving cars. And it had more women dying as an impact, as a negative impact. So that's another way where representation and diversity has an impact in our daily lives. So what do you want to do, in my opinion, today as a company, is you want to encompass all those, angles and areas of decisions before the product is released. You want to be able to connect with your audience before it's too late. And I have another example talking about that. Look at car commercials today. The typical car commercials 20 years ago, maybe even more recent than that, had a white man driving a car alone. Today, not only it's not white people, it's not men, it's women of color, it's whole families, it's kids singing in choir, concert, and whatnot there. Car makers have realized that it's not just white men that are buying cars. So economically, it makes sense for them to be inclusive in their approach and have representation because you want to connect to all your buyers. And that has an impact on your bottom line, on the benefits and the earnings you're going to be making at the end of the year. So sometimes it's not more complicated than that. Now, some companies want to do diversity. Some don't feel the need to right now because they're good, they're well off, they make money. Other companies would like to do, but they don't know how. Some rare companies want and are succeeding in that. And the successful companies, what they do is they don't fake it. Because you could fake it. You could have, I'm very into sports, and I'm going to take an analogy in because we're in North America, or any English-speaking people knows about hockey. Well, in hockey, if the people on the ice are all white, and the people on the bench that are going to jump on their next shift on the ice are also all white, but you're only going to have white people on the ice. Because of where it could have come from, well, there's no diversity there, which is the bench. If you go further to the farm team, to the G League, if it's basketball and whatnot there, and in the pipeline, there's also the same problem, which is it's just white people. And it could have been black and whatnot, but it's just more of the same. You're not going to have diversity on the ice or on the field or on the floor if it's basketball. And when your best chance of hitting diversity, when you're in an arena and then you're a hockey playing team, and you have to go into the audience to find somebody different than those that are on the ice or on the floor. All right, you might have somebody who looks different, but good luck if they can skate. And if they can skate, they're not going to score because they're not professionals. And that's what we call tokenism. Tokenism is putting somebody there because they fit the description in terms of appearance, but they have no competence whatsoever. Whereas I want to remind everyone that the number one skill that people are looking for when they recruit is competency. Now, at equal skills, diversity could represent an extra skill in a company that's not diverse. It's as simple as that. But don't put anybody there because they look like the one you want them to look like, but they're not competent, because all it does is feed into the theory that, okay, well, we don't give them the jobs because they're not competent. And, oh, okay, we have someone, and okay, there you go. He's not competent. We told you. No. If you're going to put somebody there, put somebody who's competent, meaning take the time to groom them. Take the time to groom them. So whenever they're going to get in position, they're going to have all the tools to succeed. I've noticed many times when people pick the next one, okay, he's the next VP, he's the next this and that. Well, that person, when they're picked, they start coming to VP meetings before being VPs. They do that for a year or 2 or 3. They're put in different scenarios where they learn the job before getting the title. So what I'm telling those companies is, instead of picking somebody who looks like the majority, pick somebody who looks like the minority. Pick a woman if you don't have women on your board or as VPs. Pick an Asian or a Black or a Filipino or whatnot there. Somebody who's different than the one that are already there. Because what that person will do is bring a different point of view. You could be the most intelligent person in the world. There's one thing you're not going to be, is somebody else. Somebody who's different comes from a different upbringing, most likely a different country, or a different, different origins, a different way of looking at things. And in your team, as a deciding team, you have an advantage of having a team who could look at the same thing in different angles. You could take a bunch of Harvard students and put them in a room to come up with a solution because you have one problem. You might have a very good solution, but it's going to be a solution coming from Harvard. And if you needed something else, but you're not going to have it. So dare diversity, dare to be different, Go get the things that you don't already have. Connect with your audience, because today, especially our Gen Z, they're not as loyal as we were or even our parents were. They're going to buy a product that they identify with. My daughter is willing to buy and pay an extra $1 for a bubble tea because it's made out of recycled material. She has a part-time job, but she's willing to put an extra $1 or an extra 50 cents just because that product represents a value that she believes in. So you have to be able to connect with your customers that way. Have a team of leaders that looks like the customers that you're serving. Do you know that today some banks would lend you money at a preferred rate, meaning a lower rate, if your board is diverse? If you're borrowing billions of dollars and you have a couple of percent difference on the interest rate, well, that's money in your pocket right there. For people that doubt it, say, oh, diversity doesn't do anything. Well, it does. Besides making a problem being seen in different angles, it brings you money back. It brings you a different way of seeing things. It brings you a more complete team. It brings you different challenges. You could react before the product is out and it hits the shelves. You could take people that look for, I have, Black women that are looking for product for their hairs, and then when they go to certain stores, they can't find the product where the hair products are. It's either not there, or if it's there, it's in a very different area. So why is it not where all women's hair products are? So it's things sometimes we don't do on purpose, but it says a lot about our mindset. And now it's starting to shift because people realize that everybody is a consumer. Everybody's a potential consumer. And if this product doesn't talk to me today, I'm just not going to buy it. And companies today have to make that switch sooner than later. Because I'll give another example that has maybe nothing to do with diversity, but has something to do with not being proactive and not adapting to things. Blockbuster. Blockbuster, not too long ago, was the king in terms of movie rentals. You would finish your week, Friday evening, and then you rush to closest Blockbuster and rent 2, 3, 4 DVDs for the weekend. Blockbuster never saw Netflix coming, where I could have the same thing without leaving my couch. And where is Blockbuster today? They're out of the game. They're out because they didn't anticipate, didn't react. So as a company today, don't be late in the game, because you might be making profits today, but if you don't switch your mindset, it might be too late when it hits you to react, because it's a process that takes time. And yes, there's a way you could do it, take a shortcut and not put a token in there. Is just go ask a headhunter or a headhunting agency, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a woman for VP or this role. Interview only women and bring me the best woman for the job. Because when you hire, the number one criteria is indeed competency. But with all competencies being equal, diversity is an extra skill, an extra competence in a company that's looking for diversity. You want to look like the world you're living in today. You want to look like the customers and the society you're in as a company. And that's all it is. So a few examples, I hope they speak to you. Talk about anything diversity, inclusion, representation, tokenism. If you liked it, subscribe, hit the like button, share, send me comments, let me know what you think. If there's any topics you'd like me to talk about that have experience in, I'll be more than honored to do so. And then I'll talk to you next time. Thank you.